I, like many little girls, did ballet for a bit when I was a kid. I don't remember particularly liking it. I asked my parents about it, and they were like, I don't know. You didn't do it for very long. I don't think it was your thing. Sounds about right. But I do remember watching quite a bit of ballet focused media. One of those was Angelina Ballerina, which is a franchise centered around a little mouse who wants to be a ballerina. The Angelina Ballerina franchise started as a picture book series in 1983. The series was created by author Katharine Holabird and illustrator Helen Craig. The author, Katharine Holabird, grew up in Chicago and then got her degree in literature from Bennington College in Vermont. After that, she worked for the college literary magazine. Then she met her husband and they moved to London. Wikipedia says that she was working in Italy as a freelance journalist when she met her husband, Michael Hagag. I can find nothing else to corroborate that they met in Italy. I even looked on her husband's website to see if he mentioned anything about how they met, and he does not mention her at all. On her website, she mentions her 3 kids and her husband, and he just talks about finding beauty in the mundane, which I feel like is such a man thing to do. I don't think anyone would make up that they met in Italy to put on Wikipedia. That would be such a weird thing to do. So I'm assuming that it was in her author bio somewhere at some point, and that source has now been lost. Her husband is also an American, and he was living in Europe and working as a photographer, and she was a freelance writer and journalist. So I think it's possible they were both involved in journalism in Europe, and they met and they fell in love. I just think it's funny that I cannot find this info anywhere. Such is the way of researching. Anyways, somehow the two of them met and got married, and they were living in London. She worked as a preschool teacher slash freelance writer, and they had 2 daughters and 1 son. Then her husband started a small publishing house called Aram Press, and Aram Press wanted to commission a children's picture book.
I was a young mother in London with 2 little girls at the time. My husband started a small publishing company. I'd studied writing and literature in college, and I wanted to be a writer. So I was writing back flaps and doing interviews and this, that, and the other. And he met Helen. And then later on, they decided it would be great to do a picture book with Helen. And there I was. It was a very lucky break for me.
That's a lucky break for us both, I think.
Yes.
Side note, on his website, her husband mentions starting Aram Press, but does not mention that the biggest thing they ever published was his wife's highly successful Angelina Ballerina books. Like, whose books did you publish, Michael? Sorry, I've become too invested in the lives of these old people. Katharine Holabird worked with Helen Craig on the first Angelina book. Helen Craig had worked as a photographer and had her own studio before she started working in illustration.
My father suggested I should go and join a photographic studio, what was called a commercial studio up in London, where they did advertising photographs, and we photographed people in ladies in fur coats and ladies knitting patterns and things like that. Very dull and very boring. And then I started a studio on my own, which was quite frightening but fun. I learnt a lot about making compositions and looking at things. So in a way, it wasn't a waste of time, but eventually I didn't want to do it anymore. And I started to think about illustration, which is what I'd always wanted to do.
And the two of them developed Angelina Ballerina together. Katharine Holabird wanted to do a story about a ballerina because she was inspired by her daughters who were doing ballet. Originally, the main character was going to be a little girl named Primrose, but Helen Craig drew the character as a white mouse.
Well, Katharine, you wrote it as a little girl, didn't you, to begin with?
I was really writing about a child, of course, and it is the story of a child. But Helen had already done a Little Mouse ABC and a Little Mouse 1, 2, 3 and the Mouse House book. So she was illustrating books with mice when we met. So we just decided that Angelina should be a mouse, and Helen drew a little white mouse and the tutu, and I just thought, this is it. This is the perfect character.
Helen had drawn mice in other picture books she illustrated. I think she just really likes drawing mice.
People often ask me why I draw mice, and it's very odd because once you start doing something you get stuck with it, but I'm never quite sure why. I do like them because they have little hands like humans that can hold objects. They can go up on their hind legs, which is slightly human. Then they have the added extra of whiskers and tails, which help you show their emotions. Because when Angelina's sad, her whiskers droop, and when she's happy, they go up in the air. Little things like that. But there's also another thing. My father used to call my mother Mouse. In fact, when I was very little, I thought that Mouse was the name for mothers. Didn't realise it was just her name. And I think it was because she always had to have a little bit of cheese at the end of every meal. So I started drawing mice and had a little bit of success with them. And so I rather got stuck with them.
And then the character's name was changed from Primrose. Helen Craig said that was because the Brambley Hedge books were also being published in the 80s, and one of the main characters in that series is a mouse named Primrose. Conveniently, I have Primrose right here.
It was originally called Primrose.
Oh, really?
But we couldn't do Primrose because you've probably heard of Jill Bartlam.
Yes,
And
indeed.
her character was Primrose. So we had to think up something else, and there was a woman in the office who was called Angela, and we were tossing names around, and we said Angela, Angelina. It's funny how these things happen, don't they?
The world of Angelina Ballerina is very quaint and cozy. Helen Craig uses this very soft color palette. Her line work has a lot of texture to it. Everything is very densely detailed. Angelina lives in a place called Chipping Cheddar in a world called Mouseland. Chipping Cheddar is inspired by the small village in Essex where Helen Craig grew up. She was born in 1934 and grew up in a cottage with no running water and no electricity.
The interior and the atmosphere of Angelina's cottage is like the one that I lived in as a child. We had no running water except the water we pumped from the pond. And I believe a newt came through the tap once. But I don't know if that's a sort of silly story. But anyway, my brother and I had to collect drinking water because there was no drinking water on tap from a tap down at the end of the lane. We had no electricity, so we had candles that lighted us to bed. We had paraffin lamps in the evening. When I first decided the setting for Angelina, I didn't think twice. I simply put it where I was as a child in this cottage without the electricity.
So Angelina's world exists in this different time that makes it feel very unique and separate from reality.
The look of it is very old England. I had a little girl write me once and say, please, I want to go to Mouseland. Where is it? Because Mouseland is, the way Helen has created it, is such a charming, beautiful place.
The process of creating an Angelina Ballerina book would start with Katharine writing the text of the story, which she says takes 6 to 8 weeks of writing and rewriting. Then she would give the text to Helen, who would divide the text up into how many pages she had to fill, then make storyboards, then do rough drawings, and then do the final illustrations.
This is the story for Angelina and Henry, and you can see where I've been chopping up the text and making a little note for myself. And I've just indicated the type is going to go there and there's going to be a big picture there. So that's dividing up the story. And then I start doing my first very rough scribbles. Having done the first rough storyboard, now I'm going to do it a bit more carefully. And there will be another rough after this, because this is working it out a little bit more carefully. And then I will enlarge it on the photocopier to fit the book.
Helen has said that she likes everything to be as accurate and internally consistent as possible, so she plans things out. She has a floor plan of Angelina's house, and she does character sheets to plan out the costumes for a given book, and she draws from life as much as possible.
It takes me a year to draw an Angelina book if I'm going to do it to my satisfaction.
Helen's a perfectionist. Everything looks fantastic, but it's because she's so exacting that it's difficult.
Yeah, and I have great respect for the children who are looking at these books. I don't like putting out something that's feeding the wrong information.
And one of the things I remember, Angelina's birthday, I decided she would get a bicycle for her birthday. And the last full page spread is the whole village coming out and riding bicycles through the hills. And Helen said to me, please don't ever write a story about bicycles again. They're really hard to illustrate.
They're horrid things to draw. They're very difficult. You drive me mad.
I don't know how you've done it.
Now, there are, according to Wikipedia, 60 books that have been released under the Angelina Ballerina umbrella, and out of those, 19 official mainline books. I was not going to track down and read a bunch of picture books for this video. Sorry. So we're just going to talk about the 2 books that I already own, which happen to be the first 2 books that were published. The first book that was published was called, naturally, Angelina Ballerina, and it was published in 1983. This is not a first edition. The book introduces Angelina as a character. She's a little mouse who loves to dance and is often distracted from the world around her and the things she has to do. So her parents decide to enroll her in a ballet class, which I think is a pretty reasonable solution to that problem. She takes ballet lessons from a woman named Miss Lilly, and she loves it. And she grows up to be a famous ballerina. The end. That's the first book. It's a cute book about a mouse who does ballet. In terms of characters, we have Angelina, her parents, and Miss Lilly, the ballet teacher. It's quite a simple story. Mouse likes to dance, mouse goes to dance classes, mouse becomes a dancer. But the great thing about children's picture books is they can be very simple. Then, 6 months later, the publishers approached Katharine and Helen and asked them to make another book.
We did the first book, and we didn't think there was going to be another one. And people said, oh, well, there can't be another one. She grows up, she becomes a successful ballerina. How can you go on? But actually, that was quite clever because we know she's going to be successful.
The second book was called Angelina and the Princess and was published in 1984. Angelina wants to audition for the lead role, so she stays up late the night before practicing. But then when she wakes up the next morning, she feels sick, and her mother says that she has to stay home and rest. But Angelina sneaks out of the house to go to the audition anyways. And it goes poorly. So she's given a smaller part, which she's sad about. But she attends the rehearsals, and she also learns the lead part. Then, on the day of the performance, one of the 2 lead dancers falls and sprains her ankle. And then Angelina gets to swoop in and play the part because she's the only other person who knows it. I don't know that much about live performances, but it's my understanding this is why you cast an understudy, so if your lead sprains her ankle the day of, you have someone who can do the part. Miss Lilly was very lucky that Angelina happened to learn the part on her own. I mean, they're performing for the Princess of Mouseland. This is very high stakes. Realistically, I think they don't say Angelina gets cast as the understudy, because then they would have to waste time explaining to kids what an understudy is. But I can still judge Miss Lilly for her unprofessionalism. Angelina performs, and it goes great, and afterwards, the Princess of Mouseland personally comes and thanks Angelina for saving the show. The end. This book has more of a plot than the first one. Katharine said it was inspired by a time where her daughter was sick, but threw a tantrum about wanting to perform, and it was apparently a disaster. So those are the first 2 books. I feel like they give you an idea about what the Angelina Ballerina books were like. So there were 9 Angelina books published from 1983 to 1993. But by the late 90s, the Angelina books had gone out of print. So that means that the publisher was not printing any new copies of the books. Books going out of print is not at all uncommon. Very rarely do books continue being printed forever. Even popular books may go out of print or go out of print and then come back. The Disney Fairies books that I love are out of print, and all of the original American Girl books are out of print and have been republished as shorter books. But then in 1999, a British production company called Hit Entertainment purchased the rights to Angelina Ballerina. Now, if I could go on a tangent about Hit Entertainment, it started in the 80s with a British media entrepreneur named Peter Orton. He was working on the distribution of Sesame Street. And while he was at Sesame Street, he became friends with Jim Henson, because Jim Henson was obviously involved in the puppet side of Sesame Street. At this point, Jim Henson had his own production company called Jim Henson Productions. And one day, Peter Orton was like, hey, Jim, you should create an arm of your company that handles international distribution. The thing that I'm really into. So together, they founded Henson International Television, or HIT Entertainment for short. I believe it was based in London and in charge of distributing Henson properties in the British market. Then, in the late 80s, Henson was in talks to merge Jim Henson Productions with Disney. And Peter Orton was like, wait, hold on. Before you do that, let me take over Hit Entertainment and make it an independent company. So Peter bought out Henson International Television and made it an independent company called Hit Entertainment. Since Hit Entertainment was no longer associated with the Jim Henson Company, they didn't have the rights to any of the Henson catalog. And you can't be a distribution company without any programming to distribute. So throughout the 90s, Hit Entertainment acquired distribution rights for a lot of existing programming, and they started producing new programming. Now Angelina Ballerina comes back in. Hit Entertainment bought the rights for Angelina Ballerina in 1999, and they commissioned an animated TV pilot. Hit Entertainment also made a 5-year licensing agreement with Mattel for Angelina Ballerina's publishing and merchandising rights. So the books were being republished by Mattel. Here's another convoluted business tangent. Mattel made Angelina Ballerina a product line within the American Girl brand, which feels like kind of a random decision, but whatever. American Girl dolls were originally created by a company called Pleasant Company, and in 1998, Pleasant Company was purchased by Mattel. For more on that, watch my History of American Girl video. The Pleasant Company branding took a few years to be phased out, so in 1999, when the Angelina Ballerina books were republished by Mattel, it was with Pleasant Company Publications. So my copies of the Angelina Ballerina books say Pleasant Company on the spine. I mean, can you see that, at all? American Girl used to be a pretty big publisher of children's books, but I've had trouble finding information about all the different series they published. Anyway, enough about that. I just wanted you to know that the books were back. Now let's talk about the TV show. The Angelina Ballerina series debuted on TV in 2001 on CITV in the United Kingdom, and new episodes aired throughout 2003. In the United States, it premiered on PBS Kids in 2002. The series consists of 20 episodes that are broken up into 2 unrelated 11-minute stories. So there's 39 segments in total. The show looks great. It's extremely faithful to the style of the books. And the show's music fits perfectly. It was composed by Colin Towns. I think one of the most iconic parts of the show is the title sequence, which is just a piece of classical music he composed. The show follows Angelina, obviously. Wouldn't it be funny if I was like, the main character is a mermaid named Stephanie? No, it's Angelina, and in this series, she's a very posh little mouse.
Angelina Mouseling, famous star and prima ballerina.
She has a temper, and she can be selfish, stubborn, and bossy.
I'll be the star and the director. William, you can be the camera mouse.
But I don't know anything about cameras.
Just read this instruction book and you'll be fine. But I don't... What's my job, Angelina? You can be my assistant. What does an assistant do? Whatever I say, Henry.
This kind of immature main character exists in children's shows, so kids can see a character messing up and learning from it. But when you watch it as an adult, Angelina can come across as kind of annoying. There was a point rewatching this series where I was like, I do not like this whiny little mouse. That's what people say about me. I think I was getting tired of Angelina because I was watching so many episodes in a row, like I was getting Angelina overload. For reference, I watched all of NBC Hannibal over the course of 3 days and never got tired of any of those characters. So I guess I think Angelina is worse than Hannibal Lecter. But it's been a while since my initial Angelina binge, and when I rewatched some episodes for writing this script, I didn't find Angelina nearly as annoying, so that's good. Then there's Miss Lilly, the ballet teacher. She's from a faraway land called Dakovia, which is like Mouse Russia.
Are you ready, my darlings?
She's very dramatic and theatrical and elegant, and she has a lot of friends in the professional ballet world. Which, when I give that description, I'm sure you're wondering, why is this fancy mouse teaching ballet to children in a small town? I think the answer is just that she really likes teaching children. She's very sweet and patient with all the little mouselings. Angelina is clearly her favorite, and she often helps Angelina when she makes a mistake. This is a weird comparison, but she kind of reminds me of Rarity from My Little Pony. Rarity is a very talented fashion designer, and she could work in the big city where her skills would be more respected, but she wants to live in a small town with her friends. Miss Lily is just really sweet and lovely and wants to teach kids ballet. Also, Miss Lily is voiced by Dame Judi Dench, and Angelina is voiced by her daughter, Fenty Williams. So if you're keeping track, between that and the book being published by Katharine Holabird's husband, Angelina Ballerina really feels like the nepotism series. Nepo Mouse. Then there's Angelina's best friend, Alice. Alice does ballet, but she also does gymnastics. She's much more of a comedic character. She has a lot of lines about eating food.
Made your mind up yet, dearie? Oh, I can't decide. Cheesy mints or sherbet cheddars.
She's usually much more chill than Angelina. Angelina's freaking out about something, and Alice is eating cheese and telling her it'll be okay. Reminds me of Candace and Stacy from Phineas and Ferb. Every high-strung, pink-coated girl needs a chill, turquoise-coated best friend. Angelina also has a little cousin named Henry. He's a sweet little mouse who is usually trailing behind Angelina. Katharine Holabird says that Henry was inspired by her son, who would follow his sisters around. In an interview, she said, "As for my son, who is now 6'4", he gave me the idea for little cousin Henry and the way he used to trip up his sisters. He tells me that the connection has been great for his social life. All the girls he meets have read the Angelina Ballerina books, and when he tells them he was the inspiration for little cousin Henry, they are completely hooked." I don't know if Catherine's son is getting laid because he inspired Henry, but that's what I'm choosing to believe. Henry can be kind of needy, and Angelina gets frustrated with him a lot, but she ultimately loves him and is protective of him. Henry isn't officially in the ballet class, but if there's a plot line where there's an important performance, he's here somehow. I usually don't like little kids in fiction, but Henry is the one exception. He's very cute. William is the one boy who's in the ballet class. Katharine Holabird said in an interview that William is like the charming Billy Elliot of Mouseland. He's a pretty timid and nervous character.
I couldn't find the shears. Oh, crumbs.
I wish I was an Alice, but I'm really more of a William. Angelina and Alice boss him around a little, like he carries their bags and stuff, and he has a bit of a crush on Angelina, which comes up occasionally. Angelina's mom is a stay-at-home mom. She's very sweet and level-headed. And Angelina's father writes for the newspaper, the Mouseland Gazette. He's a little bumbling, but his heart is always in the right place. There are a few episodes where his newspaper job is relevant, which I think is cute. Like there's an episode where Angelina and Alice can't get tickets to see a ballet that's coming to town, so her dad gets them press tickets and has them help interview the ballerinas. Then there's the Pinkpaw twins. Their names are Priscilla and Penelope. They're the rich, mean girls of the Angelina Ballerina universe.
Oh, poor Angelina. Somebody should buy her an alarm clock.
They're always competing with Angelina and making fun of her. The other antagonist is Sammy Watts. He's a very cliché, rude bully character. There's Mrs. Hodgepodge, who's the curmudgeonly old lady of the village. And finally, there's Polly. Halfway through the show, Angelina gets a baby sister named Polly. She's a baby and gets into baby levels of mischief. Now let's talk about some of the episodes. I don't want to talk about every episode. I think that would get repetitive very quickly and wouldn't be that interesting. So we'll just kind of jump around and talk about some random ones so you get an idea. Angelina and the fair. Angelina is going to the fair with her friends, but she has to watch Henry. Henry only wants to do lame baby things like get a balloon and go on the merry-go-round. Ugh. But Angelina and her friends want to do more grown-up things that Henry is scared of, like the roller coaster and the haunted house. So Angelina sends Henry off to watch a clown show so she and her friends can go on the roller coaster. But then, of course, Henry wanders off to chase a balloon, and when they get off the roller coaster, he's missing. Angelina is very upset that she lost him and tries to find him. And they, of course, find Henry, and she buys him a balloon and lets him go on the merry-go-round. Miss Lily is leaving. Due to some misunderstandings, Alice and Angelina think Miss Lily is moving away. So all of the mouselings in the ballet class try to impress Miss Lily so she stays. But she explains to them that she's only going away for the weekend.
Weekend? She's going away for the weekend!
Oh.
Angelina the Mouse Detective. Garden gnomes are going missing, and Angelina is on the case. She's been reading mystery novels, and she's excited to look for clues. And then it turns out that Mrs. Hodgepodge has been taking the gnomes so she could repair them.
Well, that's so nice of you, Mrs. Hodgepodge. I can't wait to tell everybody.
Don't you dare. I can't have people thinking I'm a nice old lady. They'll be coming round for tea at all hours.
2 mice in a boat. There's a boat decorating contest, and Angelina is paired up with Sammy Watts. She wants to make a princess-themed boat, and he wants to make a pirate-themed boat. So they draw a line down the middle and each decorate half of a boat. Sammy and Angelina both put a lot of heavy decorations on the boat, so it starts to sink. They throw out all of the decorations, and accidentally throw out the oars too, so they have to work together to stop the boat from going down the river. They're able to make it to the competition, and they win the teamwork prize. This episode has one of my most distinct Angelina Ballerina memories. There's a running bit in this episode where Alice and Henry are a team, and they're making a candy-themed boat, but they keep eating all the candy that was meant to be decoration.
How can I be feeling seasick when we're not even on the water yet?
I always think of that when I think of Angelina Ballerina. I don't know why. The Cheese Ball Cup Final. William experiences homophobic bullying from Sammy because he does ballet.
Prove it then, Twinkle Toes.
So he decides to give up ballet and start playing cheese ball.
Cheese ball?
His friends are upset that he isn't doing ballet, but we get the impression that William's dad is happy that he's leaving ballet for cheese ball. It turns out William is very bad at cheese ball, and Angelina suggests that he asks to be a reserve player. But then, on the day of the big match, Sammy shows up injured, so William has to play in the championship game. Then Angelina realizes that William needs to think of the game in terms of ballet and move around the field with ballet moves. Then William does great and scores the winning goal, and he decides to go back to doing ballet. Alice's present. Alice gives Angelina a new gym bag. Also, the school is raising money for a new gymnasium, and they're going to have a fundraiser. So Angelina and Alice plan to do a performance at the fundraiser and collect tips. And the Pinkpaw twins are going to have a booth where they sell people's unwanted things. The Pinkpaw twins have people in the village leave their donations on their doorsteps. Angelina forgets Alice's present outside her front door, accidentally making it look like she's donating it to be sold by the Pinkpaws. Angelina thinks the bag has gone missing, but Alice sees the Pinkpaw twins have the bag and she thinks Angelina donated it on purpose. Then the two of them continue to have misunderstandings and are in a big fight. On the day of the fundraiser fair, Angelina sends Henry to get a bag to collect tip money in, and he gets the gym bag from the Pinkpaws booth. Angelina and Alice realize what happened, and they apologize to each other and do their performance together. Angelina and Anya. There's a girl named Anya who's here for the harvest season. Anya's parents are harvest mice from Dekovia, and they travel around to help farmers. They're living in a temporary camp while they're in chipping cheddar. They seem to be representing Romani people, and if you know anything about the history of the Romani people in Europe, you know that we're about to have some mouse racism. Blackberries are in season, and usually everyone in town picks some blackberries and cooks things with them. but all of the blackberries have been picked already, and everyone is blaming the harvest mice and acting very prejudiced against them. Because Anya is being bullied, she fakes being sick so she can stay home from school. And Angelina is worried about her, so she comes and visits Anya. Anya shows Angelina her folk dancing dress and explains that some lady with a red scarf picked all of the blackberries. And then it turns out that the pinkpaw twins' mother picked all of the blackberries. Classic. A rich person blaming immigrants for something that's their fault. Then Anya and Angelina dance together at the Blackberry Fair? I don't know. They have a lot of little events at this town. Angelina and the Silver Locket. At this point, Angelina has the aforementioned baby sister Polly, and she has to take Polly with her to a party. Angelina decides that she's going to wear her mother's silver locket to the party without asking permission. While she's dancing at the party, the locket flies off. Polly picks it up off the ground and puts it in her little purse, and then Angelina can't find the necklace and she's panicking. And her mother says that she plans to wear the necklace that night. Angelina tries to buy a replacement necklace and then is about to confess, but discovers her mom already found the locket in Polly's purse, along with various other stuff she had grabbed. So that's a good selection of episodes. I feel like I've communicated the energy of this show. I feel like the scripts are all very tight, and the show is very consistent. I don't think there's really any bad episodes. All of the episodes are maybe a little boring, but I mean, it's a slow-paced show for small children. It's solid for what it is. Something I did not know about was there were 3 Angelina Ballerina specials. They're each like 45 minutes long, and I swear I have never watched them before. Like, watching the TV show, I remembered basically all of the episodes. I do not remember watching these. The first special was a Christmas special that aired in 2002 called The Show Must Go On. Angelina's ballet class is going to perform Cinderella for the Queen, and the famous Ivar Operatsky is going to direct the ballet. Angelina really wants the starring role of Cinderella, but the role requires singing, and she's afraid to sing in front of people. Does ballet usually involve singing? I don't think that's a thing. Anyway, Angelina doesn't get the part of Cinderella because of her singing, and instead she gets the part of the wicked stepmouse. Miss Lily reassures her that the wicked stepmouse is a great part and Angelina will be a star. But Angelina instead plans to convince Mr. Operatsky to give her the part of Cinderella. I don't think Mr. Operatsky wants to be directing children. He seems very annoyed with everyone. Like, Henry is here, inexplicably, and he's going to play a beetle that turns into a coach mouse. But all Henry cares about is Father Christmas and can't focus on his dancing. So Mr. Operatsky is very frustrated with him. But like, why is this small child in this ballet? This kind of feels like it's on you guys. Angelina annoys Mr. Operatsky to the point where he replaces her, and now Miss Lily is going to play the part of the wicked stepmouse, and Angelina isn't going to be in the show at all. We get a montage of her going home all sad, and it's set to Priscilla Pinkpaw singing a song as Cinderella about being sad.
I've lost my chance to dance is not to be.
Very subtle. The next day, Angelina is dejected, and she goes on a walk, and she runs into Sammy. She ends up joining Sammy on a sled race against the Pinkpaw twins. Meanwhile, Miss Lily is walking with Mr. Operatsky and explaining to him that he has to be more patient when working with children. And then, unfortunately, Angelina and Sammy sled right into Miss Lily, spraining her ankle. So she can't dance while she recovers. Then Mr. Operatsky says that he's canceling the show since he doesn't have anyone to play the wicked stepmouse. But Angelina manages to convince him to stay, and says she will play the wicked stepmouse and help him direct all the little mouselings. Mr. Operatsky is more chill directing this time, and he promises Henry that if he dances well, he will arrange a special visit from Father Christmas. The show goes great, Angelina does a good job as the wicked stepmouse, and the Queen loves the show. At the end, Mr. Operatsky shows up to Henry's bedroom dressed as Father Christmas. Of the specials, this is probably my least favorite. Angelina is just kind of annoying. It's ostensibly Christmas themed, but most of the runtime is spent doing ballet rehearsals in a theater that is not Christmassy at all. I don't like all the singing. But that said, it's not bad. I just think it's the weakest one. The next special is Angelina's Princess Dance from 2005. Angelina's ballet class is going to go to the palace to perform for the queen. I don't know how this ballet class of children keeps performing for the royal family. Even in the TV show, the royal family comes up a lot. In this special, we learn that the queen used to be a ballerina and Miss Lily was her ballet teacher. But even if Miss Lily was my childhood ballet teacher, if I were the queen, I wouldn't want to watch my former teacher's students do ballet all the time. Like, here's a sizable donation to your ballet studio, but I don't need to watch a bunch of children dance. Maybe it's just boring being queen. Like, I suppose I'll spend an evening watching children's ballet. That's not what the queen sounds like in this. Whatever. So they are performing for the queen, but the twist is that this time the kids are going to do all the work. So Angelina is going to direct and assign roles and crew responsibilities to all the other children. They're all like 7 years old, but all right. Angelina decides that they're going to do Sleeping Beauty, and she assigns roles and tasks to everyone. And she also has Sammy join the crew so he can do the special effects, because he does, like, pranks.
I've got one thing to say to you. What? How would you like to be in charge of special effects? Wow!
And as we all know, pranks from a child are the same as special effects for a theatrical production. So we go to the palace, and the queen asks Angelina if she could find parts in the show for her 2 older daughters, Valentine and Sophie, because she always wanted to see them on stage. So Angelina gives Valentine and Sophie really big parts, even though they don't have any dance experience. And surprise, they're bad. And the princesses start to complain that they can't do the show unless Angelina meets their increasingly ridiculous demands. Make the costumes frillier, make the floorboards stop creaking, rewrite the show so they can both play Sleeping Beauty, make the prop bed more comfortable.
But they're pretend beds. This is a ballet.
And Angelina orders her friends to make these demands happen. Meanwhile, Henry is convinced that the castle has ghosts. The king says that there is a ghost called Lord Stilton who wanders the halls asking for more cheese. Then Henry sees what he thinks is a ghost, but is actually the queen's youngest daughter, Phoebe, playing pranks on people. So they team up to do the ghost prank. The 2 of them scare Sammy, and he locks them in the dungeon downstairs where he had set up his special effects lab. Back with the ballet, everything is falling apart because of all the changes, and everyone is upset with Angelina because she has been so focused on the princesses. Angelina is dejected that her ballet is ruined, but then the princesses apologize to her. They explain that they didn't want to do the ballet and couldn't think of a way to get out of it, so they thought if they were annoying, Angelina would get rid of them. Angelina has a ballet crew meeting where everyone apologizes to each other and they decide to go on with the ballet, which I think is like that same night because Henry and Phoebe are locked in the dungeon. Then they find a secret passage and are wandering around in the passage when the ballet starts. Angelina and the princesses are all playing Sleeping Beauty at the same time because the princesses can only dance well when they're copying Angelina. I mean, I think the obvious solution would be to give them smaller parts instead, but I guess 3 lead dancers works too. Then the Pinkpaw twins have a special effects entrance where they come up from under the stage. And Henry and Phoebe run into them, and they come up from under the stage too. So I guess the secret passage wasn't that secret, because the entire special effect is based around it. It's really just a basement hallway at that point. Then William, who is playing the prince, kisses all 3 Sleeping Beauties, and I guess the queen loves the ballet, so hooray. This special is probably my favorite. I like the silly premise, I like the setting, the palace is beautiful, I just think it's a fun time. The final special is All Dancers on Deck from 2006. Miss Lily is taking the ballet class to Dekovia so they can do the opening number for the Dekovian Festival of Dance. So they all have to go on a 5-day journey on a boat. Henry is obsessed with boats and is very excited, but William gets seasick, so he brought a book of ridiculous seasickness cures. And the Pinkpaw twins have forgotten their dance costumes. We meet Miss Lily's nephew, Yuri, who's the radio operator on the ship. Yuri wants to marry the captain's daughter, but the captain doesn't like him. Miss Lily says Yuri should just tell the captain that he's her nephew, but he wants to prove himself, so he's not going to do that. Angelina wants to make the captain like Yuri, so she tries schemes like inviting Yuri to the welcome dinner so he can dance, and helping with his chores. But all of her plans backfire and make the captain even more upset. She apologizes to Yuri, and he asks her not to help anymore. Then, Angelina loses her new lucky necklace. The Pinkpaw twins find it pretty immediately, but they don't tell Angelina, so she keeps looking for it. Later, Yuri gets a radio that there's a storm coming, so the boat changes course to avoid it. And then the Pinkpaw twins try to use the radio to tell their mom to send their dance costumes ahead to Dekovia. But then they break the radio. And they don't want to get in trouble for that, so they frame Angelina by planting her lost necklace in the radio room. Then, since the ship changed course to avoid the storm, the ship ends up getting stuck in between two icebergs. The captain is going to radio for help, and then discovers that the radio is broken, and that Angelina's necklace is at the scene of the crime. Angelina and Yuri both try and take the blame for breaking the radio, and Yuri is fired. So the ship is stuck, and they won't make it to Dekovia in time for the performance. While they're stuck, the ballet class decides to do their performance on the ship. The Pinkpaw twins show up for the performance, not in costume, and accidentally confess to breaking the radio. And then during the performance, Angelina has the idea that if they all dance and stomp around, they could wiggle the ship free from the icebergs. This works. I don't know the physics on that, but it works. The captain apologizes to both Yuri and Angelina, and he finds out that Yuri is Miss Lily's nephew, and he is embarrassed. The ballet class makes it to Dekovia in time, and they do the performance. I think this is the most ambitious special. Like, there's a lot of interwoven plot threads. I don't like Angelina accidentally making things worse for Yuri. It's written fine, but that kind of plotline stresses me out. So I don't like those parts of the special. But other than that, I like it a lot. I think the specials are generally very impressive. The writers are able to adapt the style of the show into a much longer format, and it feels very natural. I would have watched like 5 more specials if they had existed. So that's the show and the specials. Now I would like to talk about what else the brand was doing during this era. First is home video releases, so DVD and VHS. Most of these were just 4 of the 11-minute segments bundled together on a DVD, and then also the specials each got their own home video release. These home video releases are a very specific memory for me. My brother is a huge fan of the Wiggles. He's autistic and it's been his special interest his whole life. And Hit Entertainment was in charge of home video releases for the Wiggles throughout the 2000s.
Catch Wiggly Playtime from the Wiggles, now on home video from Hit Entertainment.
So all of the Wiggles DVDs from this era would advertise other Hit Entertainment releases, such as Angelina Ballerina. There's trailers for some of the Angelina Ballerina DVDs that I know by heart. Specifically the Friends Forever trailer and the Lucky Penny trailer.
Best friends can give each other presents anytime.
Besides, you said you'd teach me ballet. Ha! Woo! These home video releases also had some bonus features, like those games where you use the buttons on the remote. And there was also a segment called Little Stars. This showed real kids doing ballet with voiceover by Angelina. They were not instructional. It wasn't kids showing how to do ballet steps. They were more like skits, and they would usually tie into the plot of an episode. So that episode where Angelina and Sammy were decorating that boat, There was a correlating Little Stars where the two dancers were dressed as a pirate and a princess. And then apparently on the DVD for the special The Show Must Go On, there was an Angelina's Dance Class DVD extra. I didn't want to buy this DVD, but there is a video on YouTube where someone has filmed their portable DVD player with Angelina's Dance Class. Thank you for your service. The fact that people upload DVD menus and stuff on YouTube is so random, but so appreciated. I'm being serious when I say that I think it's important archival work. I watched this Angelina's Dance Class, and it seems not beginner friendly. Like, she's using a lot of actual ballet terms and not really explaining them. If I was a 6-year-old watching this, I would have appreciated something more thorough. And then this is not a DVD, but a CD. I bought this off eBay. It's called Angelina Presents Classic Ballet Favorites. It features the theme music, and then the rest of it is all famous ballet music. Each track is introduced by Angelina, who explains a little bit about the piece of music and the ballet that it's from.
They meet the sugar plum fairy in the land of sweets and have a wonderful feast. This is my favourite part, and it's called the Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy.
And then my CD also has this ballet poster. It's showing, like, ballet steps. I just love odd pieces of merchandise like that. There's no point to me owning this, but I wanted it. Then there were lots of toys. There have been a lot of plush toys of the Angelina Ballerina characters, which I think are always adorable.
They insisted she had to have knickers.
And since Mattel had licensing rights for Angelina Ballerina, they made toys as part of the American Girl product line. These were plush toys of the characters, additional outfits, play sets, and furniture. I'd say the most iconic piece was this fold-out cottage playset. It was a book that would fold open and form 3 rooms: Angelina's bedroom, her living room, and her kitchen. The walls were printed like illustrations from the book. Then there were furniture sets for each room sold separately. Later, they made a similar product, which was magnetic rooms, where the walls were blank and you could decorate them with magnets and then add the furniture. There was also a stage playset and a gymnastics set, and various accessories for girls, like a bedding set and ballet accessories. I like this line. My main problem with it is that the dolls and playsets are quite big, and on the secondhand market, very expensive. Then there were Angelina Ballerina Sylvanian families, except not really, but also kind of. In 1999, a UK toy company called Flair took over the UK production of Sylvanian families. And in 2003, Flair released Angelina Ballerina figures. These were not branded as Sylvanian families, but like, they obviously were. And a lot of the items in this line were just existing Sylvanian items that were repurposed. I'm basing this on a blog post on a blog called Sylvanian Invasion, which I will have linked in my big bibliography document. There were figures of different characters and some play sets. There's the obvious figures, like Angelina, Alice, Henry, Miss Lily, the Pinkpaw twins. But then there's some more random ones, like Princess Valentine and Sophie in their Sleeping Beauty costumes, and Miss Quaver, who plays the piano for the ballet class, and Angelina's mom and sister Polly, which that's not what her mom wears. There was a stage playset which folded up into what I believe is supposed to be Angelina's ballet bag. Not the bag that Alice gave her, but her original one, which is purple with yellow flowers on it and a letter A. American Girl sold a version of it. The stage had balconies and you could put a figure on the stage and spin it around. Then there was Angelina's house called Cheddar Cottage, which was a re-release of a Sylvanian Meadowcroft cottage. These figures don't really do it for me. They don't look enough like the characters for me, and I feel like the way they're standing looks so awkward for ballerinas. It's like that meme where you're telling your parents that you threw up. If you like them, good luck, because they're expensive on eBay. Then there's pop-up books. I love pop-up books. I think they're so cool. I think they're so cool that I bought 2 of them. The first one I have is Angelina Ballerina's Sleepover Party. This has a short story and then a 3D cross-section of Angelina's cottage at the back. It comes with 3 paper figures. They fit in this little bed. There's a page that's supposed to be the front of the house with doors and windows that open, and then the cross-section of the house, which has details like stairs and furniture that pop out. I think there were more pieces. There's little slots where I think pieces would fit into, like the pies on the table. And there's also a wheel that you can spin that makes the fire and the fireplace move. I don't know how fun this would have been to play with as a child. It just doesn't seem very versatile. Then there's Angelina Ballerina's Pop-Up Dancing School. This is the one I was very excited about. Helen Craig described the process of working on this pop-up book, and the video said that the paper engineer on this project was Maggie Bateson.
When it was first suggested that we made a pop-up, this was the dummy that the paper engineer brought along to show me how the stage would work.
Which was very exciting for me, because I had a pop-up fairy princess palace by Maggie Bateson. Actually, I still have it. Actually, I have 2. Because my childhood one is a little taped up, so I wanted a backup. So I knew this dance school would be awesome. And it is! This kind of pop-up book opens 360 degrees to create a sort of paper dollhouse. This one did not come with the paper doll pieces. But when I was buying a pop-up book secondhand from 2006, I expected that it wouldn't have any additional pieces in it. The figures would have gone in this pocket in the front. Also, whoever owned this book before me put a bunch of stickers on the cover. They were easy enough to get off. Overall, it's in way better condition than I could have hoped for. The first room features a dorm room and a cafeteria. The second room features a dressing room and a rehearsal space. And the final room features a stage.
All these things had to be painted flat, and it was very difficult to know which was on the top and which was underneath. And everything has to fit when it's all printed. It's even painted underneath the table as well, because, you know, when I was a child, if I had a book like this, I would have looked at the backs of things, and if they weren't painted, I was very cross. I think once you've done a pop-up, you are so exhausted by the end. It really is a lot of work, but great fun.
This is a long shot, but if you own this and you still have some of the paper figures, could you send me pictures of them? I want to help preserve this very impressive artifact. Then, the English National Ballet did a ballet adaptation of Angelina Ballerina in 2007. There's not very much information about it online. I feel like that's often the case with live performances from many years ago that no one cares about but me. But I believe it was a loose adaptation of the special Angelina's Princess Dance. Angelina is putting on a performance of Sleeping Beauty for the Queen with the help of her friends, but Phoebe and Henry are getting into mischief. That sounds like the special. There was a DVD produced by Hit Entertainment that was a recording of the touring production. It may have only been an Australian or a UK release, and so I bought a copy from Australia. I did not watch much of the actual ballet because I found it boring. Also, it was an hour long. But I did watch the behind-the-scenes segment where they interviewed 2 of the dancers. Both of the dancers talked about how different it was from any other ballet they had ever done, on account of the mouse costumes and the loud audience of children. The DVD was region locked, so getting this behind-the-scenes segment onto my computer was kind of annoying, and I'm not even going to use enough of it to warrant that effort. Or, in fact, purchasing the DVD at all. Also, in 2006, the Queen of England, not the Queen of Mouseland, turned 80. And as part of the celebrations, there was an event called the Children's Party at the Palace. The event was organized by Peter Orton of Hit Entertainment and some other guy named David Johnstone. Researching for this video, I kept having moments where I was like, I've connected the two dots. Peter Orton, Hit Entertainment, everything's connected. The event was themed around the history of British children's literature, and the main attraction was a play called The Queen's Handbag. In the play, villains from British children's literature steal the Queen's handbag. Without the reading glasses in the handbag, the Queen won't be able to read her speech. So everyone has to work together to find the handbag. Cruella de Vil wants to make a rug out of the Queen's corgis. The Harry Potter cast recorded a segment. Angelina Ballerina has a brief appearance in the play where she dances to her theme tune. The BBC broadcast of the event is up on the Internet Archive, and when I started watching it, I was like, oh, this is a lot more than I was imagining. Katharine Holabird was also invited to the event, and I believe she signed books along with other authors. Oh, Katharine Holabird was invited to the Queen's birthday. Were you invited to the Queen's birthday, Michael? And so that was the classic era of Angelina Ballerina. And then in 2009, it got a reboot called Angelina Ballerina: The Next Steps. It aired on 5 and Nick Jr. in the UK and PBS Kids in the US. There were 40 episodes that were each 2 unrelated 11-minute segments, so 80 in total. I'm letting you know up front that I did not watch very many episodes. I tried to go in with an open mind, but this show really wasn't for me. So I'm not going to really be talking about the plots of episodes. I'm more going to be talking about the overall picture. Before we talk about anything else, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or the CGI mouse in the room. The show looks different, very different. Some might say worse. The classic show used cell animation, and this show used CGI animation. The main reason given by showrunners was that The Next Steps was going to be more focused on dance, and using CGI meant they would be able to move the characters more freely. With CGI animation, you're creating a 3D model of a character and then moving it around like a puppet. So it's easier to have a character spin around doing ballet moves, for example. That also explains why the proportions of the mice changed. They're much more human-like, with longer legs and slimmer bodies because they're meant to show off the dance moves much more. From that perspective, I think the switch to CGI makes sense. I don't think that's the problem with this art style. I think the problem is how generic it looks. Stylistically, it just looks like any other preschool cartoon. The original art style was so iconic and distinctive. This style has a lot less character and charm to it. The switch to CGI is one thing, but the art style is a separate thing. I think they wanted the show to be more bold and bright and high energy, which you can say a lot about Helen Craig's art style, but I don't think you'd call it bold and high energy. So the color palette changed. Instead of delicate and detailed, everything is more bold and simple. To me, this show feels like it's aimed at a younger demographic, and the art style is part of that. Compared to the classic show, it feels like the visual equivalent of jingling keys in front of a baby. I'm sure the higher-ups thought this change would help make the show successful. And the show was successful, so I guess they were vindicated. Screw me, I guess. I think CGI animation nowadays has gotten a lot more stylized. There's a lot more diversity in the art styles, but I personally don't connect with how The Next Steps looks, and I think it's kind of a bummer. Anyway, I just wanted to address that because, you can see that it looks different. Well, I mean, unless you have this on in the background and you aren't looking at the video. In which case, I hope your chores or art or video game is going well. Now let's talk about the premise of this show. This is meant to be a continuation of the previous show. so it's supposed to be set in the same universe as the previous show. Angelina and her parents and her sister Polly are moving to the opposite side of Chipping Cheddar so Angelina could attend the Camembert Dance Academy. At Camembert, Angelina has a new dance teacher and several new friends who each like different styles of music and dance. This show is much more high energy. The episodes feel a lot less plot heavy. There's no antagonists, and there's a lot of stuff that feels like filler. I wish it wasn't a continuation. Since it's supposed to be set in the same timeline, they have to give all of these explanations as to why things are different, and some of it feels clunky. Most of the characters from the previous show aren't here, so no William or Pinkpaw twins or Sammy or Mrs. Hodgepodge or Henry, which makes sense because Angelina has moved away from where all these characters live. It is kind of weird that Henry never makes an appearance. He is her cousin. Angelina's sister Polly has been aged up for this show, so I have to assume that's why Henry isn't here, because those characters would be very similar now. But Alice is here. I'm sure the thought process was, you have to have Alice. Angelina and Alice are iconic best friends. Miss Lily is not in this show, but she is referred to off-screen in the first episode. In the first episode, Angelina is nervous about starting at her new school, but Miss Lily sends Angelina a letter reassuring her that her new teacher, Miss Mimi, is a friend of Miss Lily's. Then, in the second episode, when Angelina meets Miss Mimi, Angelina talks about how much she loved Miss Lily. There's also a random portrait of Miss Lily in the lobby of Camembert Academy. And then Miss Lily is basically never referenced again, which all feels kind of weird. It's like they're acknowledging that Miss Lily is an iconic Angelina Ballerina character, and it would be weird not to mention her at all, but they don't really want her in the show. And I'm not sure why that is. Maybe this soft-spoken, aging Russian diva didn't fit the vibe they had planned. They wanted the dance teacher to be more young and fun, but I feel like they could have kept Miss Lily as a minor character. Like maybe Miss Lily founded Camembert Academy and she's the headmistress, and every once in a while she shows up when they have an important performance, or she comes to offer Angelina wisdom about something. But it's so strange that she exists off screen and we never see her. It reminds me of, this is going to be a weird reference. You know the 2009 TV movie Legally Blondes with those British twins who were in a lot of kids' TV? I believe it played on Disney Channel when I was a kid. At the beginning of the movie, the British twins are going to stay at Elle Wood's house in LA. I think they're like her cousins or something. But Elle has left them a letter, and there's a pop art portrait of her on the wall. And of course, I had no knowledge of the original Legally Blonde when I watched Legally Blondes as a kid. So I was just like, who the hell are they talking about? And I'm sure they were thinking, we can't have Legally Blondes without Elle Woods, but we can't afford Reese Witherspoon. Just put a picture of her on the wall, whatever. That's how they're treating Miss Lily and Angelina Ballerina the next steps. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, wasn't Miss Lily played by Dame Judi Dench? Maybe they just couldn't afford to bring her back. And I don't think that's it, because they recast or replaced literally every other character. But let's talk about the characters we do have. First, we have Angelina.
Saturday! Saturday is absolutely positively my most favourite day of the week.
A lot of the voice acting in this show is very big and bright. I think because it's trying to be engaging for littler kids. I don't like it at all. But I recognize this is not aimed at me. Angelina is a lot less flawed than she was in the original show. Remember the original show where Angelina was a worse person than Hannibal Lecter? This Angelina has been super toned down. All of the characters in the next steps are sort of generically nice and not super different personality-wise. I mean, they all like different kinds of dance and music, but in terms of temperament, affect, disposition, behavior, they're all very similar. You could argue I didn't watch enough of the show, and that's why I think the characters are similar, because I didn't see enough of them. But I would argue that if an adult cannot identify differences between the characters after watching several episodes, then the differences are too subtle. Usually, children's media uses broad personality archetypes. The girly girl, the tomboy, the shy one, the nerdy one, the funny one, the mean one. The original show did that. Angelina is feisty and ambitious. Alice is funny and laid back. Henry is curious and earnest. The Pinkpaw twins are snooty and rude. William is timid and nervous. I could not give you any adjectives for these new mice, which makes it more boring for me to watch because I don't really care about the characters and their personalities aren't really driving the stories. Then we have Polly, who I mentioned. She's a child. There's Alice. Same as Angelina, her personality hasn't really survived from the original show. And her accent is more posh. Speaking of accents, there is for some reason a UK and a US dub of this show. I didn't know that was a thing, doing a dub in the same language just for a different dialect. I knew that Dan and Phil had lines in the UK version of Big Hero 6, but I didn't know there were cartoons that had different UK and US versions. So Alice has a different voice actress in the different dubs. Miss Mimi is Angelina's new dance teacher. She has an American accent in the US dub and what I think is a Scottish accent in the UK dub. She likes a lot of different kinds of dance and is a more experimental teacher than Miss Lily. She wears this purple dress and leggings and headband combo. I think it's ugly in like a charming way. Then one of Angelina's new friends is Gracie. She has a French accent in the US dub and wears a yellow dress. She's more into modern dance. Another new friend is Vicky. She has an American accent in the US dub and wears an orange dress. She likes dances from different cultures like Irish step dance. Then there's Marco. He has a Spanish accent in the US dub and wears a blue shirt. He's a musician, he plays a lot of instruments, and he especially likes the drums. And finally, there's AJ. His name is AZ in the US dub. Why? I'm calling him AJ. He has an American accent in the US dub and wears a red hoodie, and he likes hip-hop dance. I do like that all of the characters like different types of music and dance, and I love that the show tries to expose kids to stuff other than ballet and classical music. I think that's a really smart change from the original Angelina. Let's talk about the show itself. The show starts out with Angelina having to adjust to moving and going to a new school and having a new teacher. There's a review of this show on Common Sense Media where someone says, "And did you even watch the first episode? It teaches you that change isn't always a bad thing. It's just different. These people need to learn to take off their nostalgia goggles, look beyond the CGI, and see the charm this show really has." Drag me. So the first episode, 1A and 1B, Angelina doesn't like change, so she's trying to get out of going to Camembert Academy so that things can all go back to normal. She calls the school and says she isn't coming and tries to hide the letter saying when school starts. But then her family visits a ballet store and she gets the letter from Miss Lily telling her that the new school is going to be okay. Then in the other part of the episode, she goes to school and is self-conscious that everyone does other types of dance. But then everyone is impressed by her ballet. Then I go to episode 2. Angelina meets Miss Mimi, who runs her class very differently from Miss Lily. And at the end of the episode, Angelina sings a song. I was absolutely blindsided. I didn't look into this show before I started watching it, so I did not know that a lot of the episodes have songs in them. The songs are around a minute long, and in my opinion, not very good. I mean, the theme song was the first red flag. It's very children's pop music. I don't know if I can play any of this music because music is the #1 YouTube copyright risk. It's not as good as The Wiggles, let's just say that. I'm sure kids like it. Though I think it's interesting that the music isn't posted anywhere. They didn't make CDs, it's not streaming anywhere, the songs aren't even really on YouTube. I believe some of the DVD compilations had music videos and karaoke versions of the songs. Speaking of DVDs, let's talk about the specials. Most of what they released was compilations of multiple episodes, but they had 2-hour-long specials. The first one is the Shining Star Trophy. There's going to be a talent show, and everyone's figuring out what their talent is going to be. And Angelina is helping everyone, so she doesn't have time to practice her talent. And I was watching this special, and I thought the pacing was a little bit off, but I was like, whatever. But then I got to the point in the special where AJ wants to do the cheese roll dance, which is a dance where you juggle cheese, as his act for the talent show. But he's having trouble with it. And I was like, I've seen this before. And then I realized this whole section is just reused animation from the episode Angelina's Cheese Roll. And then I started cross-referencing the events of this special with the list of episodes on Wikipedia. And I realized that a lot of this special is reused animation. Angelina has to watch her sister Polly, which is just parts from the episode Angelina and Polly's Big Day. Angelina's dad shows her and her friends musical instruments, and they sing a song, which is from the episode Angelina and the Marcel Mousseau Mime Challenge. They changed the lyrics of the song to fit the special. I didn't really keep looking into it after that, because I had my confirmation. I'm sure they had a limited budget and limited time, but it's still very surreal watching it. Oh, and Angelina wins the talent show. The other special is Dreams Do Come True. Polly enters Angelina into a competition to join the Met Rockfort Ballet Junior Dance Company. I don't know why they're allowing a child dancer to join based on a mail-in competition. How are they picking the winner? Like, is it just random, or is it somehow merit-based? Like, are they watching all of these children dance? Polly wants to help Angelina achieve her dream because Angelina helped Polly achieve her dream of being a superhero, which is from the episode Angelina and Super Polly, where Angelina helps Polly pretend to be a superhero. Angelina wins this contest and then hides the letter so it can be a surprise, which is literally from the pilot episode. She's going to have to move away for the Met Rockfort boarding school. So Polly is sad about that. Angelina has friends stay over for a sleepover, which is from the episode Angelina's Sleepover. And her friends reminisce about their time together now that Angelina is moving away. It's literally like, "Aw, don't you remember the events of this episode?" And Angelina decides that she doesn't want to go away to boarding school and she wants to stay in Chipping Cheddar with her friends and family. These specials are so weird. Like the pacing and the very, very loose story that has been strung together out of existing episodes. Part of me is like, why did we even make these specials? Did they sell better than the DVD compilations? I mean, they only made 2 of them. I can't imagine how these came to be. The last thing related to the show I want to talk about is the educational aspect. Since The Next Steps was going to be a PBS Kids show, PBS wanted it to have an educational curriculum. So The Next Steps had a live action segment called Shining Stars, which shows kids doing different types of dance and music, and sometimes adults too. And at the end of the episode, they would show some of this live action footage, and either Angelina or Marco would do voiceover giving some history or terminology. I like these segments a lot. I think it's way more interesting and useful than the Little Stars segment from the original show. I will say, since it's mostly children are awkward and don't interview well, so that element of it is funny to watch. I subscribed to PBS Kids on Amazon Prime to research this, because these Shining Stars segments haven't really been uploaded online. Someone uploaded the Spanish dub version of some of them, which is a language I do not speak, but it gave me a feel for the segments. And then some of the people featured in segments have uploaded them onto YouTube. Like, there was a group featured called Black Violin, and they uploaded their segment onto their personal YouTube. But PBS Kids streaming has the full episodes with the live action segments. Initially, I didn't want to bother, but my mom was like, it's $5, just do it. So I did my journalistic due diligence and watched some of the segments as they appeared in the original show. Very cute and awkward. Strong PBS Kids energy. Speaking of dance education, there was a program, I don't think it exists anymore, called Angelina Ballerina's Dance Academy. Dance studios could pay a licensing fee and then do an Angelina Ballerina branded dance program. It was a beginner ballet class for ages 3 to 6. The studios would have access to Angelina Ballerina posters and signage and mats and costume items like tutus and mouse ears. And I believe there was Angelina Ballerina voice recordings and music from the TV show. This seems like it was a really widespread program. It existed across the UK and Ireland and Australia and New Zealand and the US and Canada. There is a UK and US version of the website. First archive I could find of the UK website is from 2009. I think it still existed as of 2017. That's when the Facebook page stopped being updated. The US program may have stuck around a little longer. I think this program is genius, like an absolute no-brainer. Little kids love it, the brand makes money from the licensing, and it's good for brand recognition, and I'm sure it was good for dance studios, getting kids who may not have done ballet otherwise. Now let's talk about the live shows from this era. There was another ballet from the English National Ballet called Angelina's Big Audition. This was in 2009 and based on the Next Steps TV show. It seems to be a transition between the first show and the Next Steps, because the plot is that Angelina is auditioning for Camembert Academy. There does not seem to be a full recording of that anywhere, but I believe Miss Lily was a character, and a lot of her friends from the Next Steps were also characters. There's a part where AJ does a hip-hop dance. Then there was Angelina Ballerina the musical, sometimes called the Mouseicle. I believe those are just two different names for the same thing. It seems like it's been running off and on since like 2010, 2011. It definitely ran in the UK in 2014. I believe it ran in New York in like 2018. In the show, the performers don't wear mascot heads, they just wear mouse ears, which I think is a positive change. If you're doing like an Angelina Ballerina meet and greet, your Angelina should probably be in a full mascot suit like Mickey Mouse at Disneyland. But if you're doing a ballet where all of the characters need to dance around, you can't have them wear a full body costume. So then just having them wear the head looks really weird. And there's already such a suspension of disbelief with mice doing ballet. You may as well just have their faces exposed. Katharine Holabird agrees with me. I believe the plot is that the characters are getting ready for a performance at Camembert Academy, and there's going to be a special visitor. And then there seems to have been a holiday version of the musical. So that's the Next Steps era. I must add, I don't think Katharine Holabird and Helen Craig like this era as much.
It's difficult sometimes visually when it gets altered terribly.
It's very hard letting go when you can't control everything.
I've let go now. I'm like a mother who's let a child go out into the world.
Which makes sense. The original era was so faithful to the books, and the Next Steps is so not. But I do really love some of what this show is trying to do. I love the incorporation of different dance and music styles. I really didn't want to be nostalgia-brained about this. Like, the one I grew up with was good, and the new one is bad. But I think it would be dishonest of me to say that the Next Steps is of a comparable quality to the original show. There's stuff I like about it, stuff I don't. That goes for the original too. They're just very different, and the new one is not to my tastes. So what now? The Next Steps premiered in 2009, which is now 15 years ago. Yikes. So what's the status of the brand now? Well, Mattel bought out Hit Entertainment in 2012. And every couple years, they're like, we're gonna reboot Angelina Ballerina. It's coming. And then they don't do that. Recently, Simon & Schuster started re-releasing the books and publishing new books. Valerie Garfield from Simon & Schuster said in a Publishers Weekly article that they wanted a strong female character for girls and realized they already had that with Angelina Ballerina. Allegedly, according to this 2019 article, Mattel was developing a new TV series. But I think tellingly, this Simon & Schuster lady said, It's such a strong property that we wanted to go ahead with the classic program even as the media development is ongoing. Angelina is still recognizable and still resonates so well. It doesn't need the TV. So I'm not holding my breath for a new TV show. But how nice that this 40-year-old picture book is still going strong and getting new books. While I was working on this video, Katharine Holabird held an Instagram giveaway for a signed copy of one of the new books. I did not win. Katharine, if you want to send me a signed book, I would not be opposed. Or Helen. So now I ask you, do you have any Angelina Ballerina memories? Did you go to any of the live shows or the dance class? Did you take ballet because of Angelina Ballerina? How did that go? Thank you so much for watching. I know I was gone for a little while there. I was busy getting my bachelor's degree and also ongoing health problems, but the degree too. If you enjoyed this video, you can subscribe. I'm Sarah Seraph on all social media, even though I don't post much. I don't know how to end a YouTube video, so bye!